Welcome to Sleeping Radio. Tonight, we begin a long and quiet journey through one of the most unsettling natural mysteries ever recorded in human history. The phenomenon known as the blood rain, witnessed across Europe and the Middle East over many centuries, feared by kings, recorded by monks, and remembered by chroniclers as a sign from the sky. Before we begin the story itself, tell us in the comments which country you are listening from, and what kind of historical mysteries you would like us to explore in future episodes. Now allow your breathing to slow, let your thoughts drift, and listen as history speaks in a calm and steady voice. In the ancient and medieval world, the sky was not just weather, it was language. Every unusual color, every strange cloud, and every unexpected rain was believed to carry meaning sent from beyond the human world. Among the most frightening of these signs was rain that fell red like blood. People described it staining stone walls, soaking into fields, and marking clothing and skin with a color that no one could ignore. The earliest written references to blood rain appear in classical antiquity. Roman historians believed that red rain was an omen of war, plague, or the death of rulers. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder, writing in his Natural History in the 1st century of the Common Era, recorded cases of rains that appeared red or blood-like in color. He did not fully understand the cause, but he documented the phenomenon as something observed by many witnesses across the Roman world. Pliny noted that such rains caused panic among the population. Farmers abandoned fields, soldiers feared defeat, and priests rushed to interpret the meaning through sacrifice and prayer. In the 1st century before the Common Era, Roman records describe red rains falling in parts of Italy. These events were often followed in the chronicles by wars or political violence, reinforcing the belief that the sky was warning humanity. As the Roman Empire expanded eastward, similar reports appeared in the eastern Mediterranean. Writers in Syria, Anatolia, and the Levant recorded rains that fell red and left residue on stone and leaves. By late antiquity, Christian chroniclers began recording blood rain with theological meaning. They described it as a sign of divine anger or a call to repentance. In the 4th century of the Common Era, church historian Eusebius of Caesarea mentioned unusual atmospheric signs before periods of conflict. Later writers connected these signs with blood-colored rain falling before sieges and uprisings. During the early Middle Ages, reports of blood rain became more frequent in surviving texts. This is partly because monasteries carefully recorded unusual natural events alongside political history. In the year 582 of the Common Era, chronicles from Gaul describe rain that fell red across fields and villages. The historian Gregory of Tours recorded that people believed it was blood falling from the heavens. Gregory wrote that garments appeared stained as if soaked in blood. He emphasized the fear among the population and the prayers that followed. In the same century, similar reports appear in the Eastern Roman world. Byzantine chroniclers described red rains falling before outbreaks of disease and unrest. Moving eastward into the Middle East, Islamic historians also recorded strange colored rains. Early Arabic chronicles describe red dust and rain falling across Iraq and the Levant. In the 9th century of the Common Era, historians writing in Baghdad mentioned rains that left red residue on rooftops and streets. These events were often interpreted as warnings of famine or political turmoil. The historian Al-Tabari, in his great historical chronicle, recorded unusual celestial and atmospheric events. While he did not always label them blood rain, descriptions of red rain and dust appear in his accounts of troubled years. In the year 873 of the Common Era, reports from Syria describe rain mixed with red particles. People feared it was a sign of coming disaster, and prayers were held in mosques across the region. In medieval Europe, blood rain became deeply embedded in the language of prophecy. Chronicles from England, France, Germany, and Italy repeatedly mention rain like blood. In the year 1198 of the Common Era, English monks recorded red rain falling in several regions. They linked it to wars and unrest following the reign of King Richard. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle mentions unusual rains and signs in the sky. Later commentators interpreted these passages as blood rain events. In France, during the 13th century, chroniclers described red rain falling before outbreaks of plague. They believed the land itself was being warned of suffering to come. In the Middle East, during the same centuries, travelers reported red rains in desert regions. These accounts appear in geographical and travel writings rather than theological texts. The famous traveler Ibn Battuta, writing in the 14th century, mentioned strange colored dust storms. Later, scholars suggested that some of these descriptions may relate to blood rain phenomena. By the late Middle Ages, blood rain had become a recurring symbol of fear. Artists painted red skies, and sermons warned of divine judgment tied to such events. However, not all observers accepted supernatural explanations. Some scholars began to suggest natural causes, though they lacked modern science. In the Renaissance period, thinkers questioned ancient fears. They proposed that red rain might be caused by dust, pollen, or particles carried by wind. Despite this, blood rain continued to be reported. In the year 1665 of the Common Era, red rain fell in parts of Italy. Scientific observers collected samples. They noted that the color came from fine particles rather than actual blood. In the Middle East, Ottoman records mention red rains during the 17th century. These were sometimes linked to sandstorms from distant deserts. Modern science would eventually provide explanations. Red rain is often caused by dust from deserts, such as the Sahara, carried by high-altitude winds. This dust can contain iron oxides. When mixed with rain, it produces a deep red color. In some cases, microscopic algae can also cause red rain. These organisms produce pigments that stain water when present in large numbers. Yet understanding the cause does not erase the historical fear. For those who lived before modern science, blood rain was a message written across the sky. It shaped decisions, inspired prayers, and entered the memory of civilizations. From Rome to Baghdad, from monasteries to mosques, the same red rain fell and the same fear followed. As centuries passed and memory layered upon memory, the phenomenon of blood rain continued to return in moments when societies were already tense, so that the strange color falling from the sky seemed to echo the anxiety already present on the ground. People did not experience these events as isolated accidents of nature, but as part of a larger story in which heaven and earth were closely connected and constantly communicating. In the early medieval Islamic world, scholars collected reports of unusual weather alongside political and military events, believing that the natural order reflected the moral condition of society. Red rain, red dust, and red skies were therefore preserved in historical works as signs worth remembering, not because their causes were known, but because their effects on human behavior were undeniable. In the year 944 of the Common Era, chroniclers in Iraq described rain that left a reddish film on walls and water basins. The event occurred during a period of political instability, and many believed the sky itself was mirroring the bloodshed that people feared was approaching. Mosques filled with worshippers seeking protection, while scholars debated whether such signs were warnings or tests. The same century saw similar reports in the western Islamic lands, including Al-Andalus. Andalusian historians mentioned rains mixed with colored dust arriving after strong southern winds. These winds were later understood to carry particles from North Africa, but at the time they were interpreted through theology and astrology. In Europe, the 10th and 11th centuries were rich with records of blood rain because monasteries acted as centers of memory. Monks wrote not only about kings and battles, but also about eclipses, comets, earthquakes, and rains that fell red. In the year 1048 of the Common Era, German chronicles describe rain that turned rivers a dark color for several days. Villagers believed the water had been poisoned by heaven itself. Fear spread faster than the rain, and people avoided drinking from streams until the color faded. In England, similar fears appeared in monastic writings. Chroniclers connected red rain with famine, believing crops touched by it would fail. These beliefs shaped real decisions, as fields were sometimes left unharvested out of fear. During the period of the Crusades, blood rain took on new meaning. Both Christian and Muslim writers interpreted it as a sign connected to war in the Holy Land. In the year 1096 of the Common Era, reports from parts of France mention red rain shortly before large groups departed eastward. Preachers used these reports to strengthen their message, claiming the heavens were involved in human conflict. In the Levant, Islamic historians recorded strange atmospheric signs during the same period. Red dust falling with rain was described in Damascus and Jerusalem. Some believed it came from distant deserts, while others believed it reflected the blood already spilled in battle. As the 12th century continued, blood rain remained part of collective memory. Children grew up hearing stories of red skies told by elders who had witnessed them. These stories did not fade quickly, because they were retold whenever crisis returned. In the year 1258 of the Common Era, the fall of Baghdad shocked the Islamic world. Chroniclers writing after this catastrophe mentioned unusual skies and strange rains in the years surrounding the event. Whether these reports describe true blood rain or symbolic memory is debated, but their presence shows how deeply the idea was rooted. In Europe, the 13th and 14th centuries brought plague and upheaval. Blood rain was reported in several regions before and during outbreaks of disease. People believed the air itself had become corrupted. Red rain was sometimes seen as proof that the world had entered a time of punishment. In the year 1348 of the Common Era, during the Black Death, reports of strange rains and skies multiplied. Although not all were red, those that were remembered with particular fear. The belief that blood rain carried illness led people to avoid rainwater entirely. In the Middle East, similar fears existed during periods of epidemic. Historians writing in Cairo and Damascus described dust-colored rain following strong winds. They noted its strange appearance and the fear it caused among ordinary people. Despite growing scholarship, explanations remained limited. Natural philosophy had not yet developed the tools to fully explain atmospheric transport. As a result, blood rain remained suspended between observation and belief. In the late medieval period, scholars began to compile lists of unusual natural events. Blood rain was categorized alongside eclipses and earthquakes. These lists would later become valuable to modern historians studying historical climate patterns. With the arrival of the early modern period, curiosity slowly replaced fear. Collectors preserved samples of red rain residue. They examined it under early microscopes and noted that it contained fine particles. In the year 1646 of the Common Era, red rain fell in southern France. Observers recorded its smell, texture, and effect on stone and cloth. These descriptions moved closer to science, even if full understanding remained distant. In the Ottoman world, scholars recorded red rains and dust storms in official registers. They treated them as natural phenomena, though still acknowledging their impact on public morale. By the 18th century, European scientists began to connect blood rain with desert dust. They observed that red rain often followed winds from the south. Samples showed mineral particles rich in iron. The fear that had once surrounded blood rain slowly faded, yet memory did not disappear. Stories passed down for generations remained powerful. Even when science explained the cause, the image of red rain retained its emotional weight. People still remembered how their ancestors had trembled beneath red skies. As the world moved slowly toward modernity, the phenomenon of blood rain did not vanish, but its meaning began to change, shifting from fear of divine warning to curiosity about the hidden mechanics of the natural world. Yet for ordinary people, especially those far from centers of learning, red rain remained unsettling, because color speaks to instinct before reason has time to intervene. In the 17th century of the Common Era, Europe experienced several well-documented cases of red rain that were carefully recorded by scholars and witnesses alike. In the year 1629 of the Common Era, red rain fell in parts of southern Germany and northern Italy, leaving stains on walls and crops that lasted for days. Local authorities gathered testimonies from villagers, noting the exact hour the rain began and the direction of the wind. Although some scholars proposed mineral dust as the cause, many people still whispered about hidden meaning. In France, during the same century, red rain was reported near. Observers described how white linens hung outdoors were stained a deep rust color after a brief rainfall. These accounts were preserved in academic correspondence, showing a transition from mythic fear to analytical description. In the Middle East, similar events continued to be recorded in Ottoman administrative texts. Officials noted unusual weather conditions because of their effect on agriculture and taxation. Red rain was sometimes listed without interpretation, simply as an observable fact. This silence itself marked a cultural shift, as explanation was no longer demanded from the heavens, but from nature. In the year 1709 of the Common Era, red rain fell across parts of Spain and southern France. Scientists collected samples and compared them across regions. They discovered similarities in composition, suggesting a common source transported by wind. At the same time, travelers in North Africa described massive dust storms lifting fine particles high into the sky. The connection was not yet fully proven, but suspicion grew stronger. Despite these advances, popular belief lagged behind scholarly understanding. In rural areas, red rain continued to inspire prayer and fasting. Older generations taught younger ones to fear unusual skies, passing down stories rooted in medieval memory. In the 18th century, the Enlightenment encouraged systematic observation. Natural philosophers began to track weather patterns over long periods. They noticed that red rain often followed winds blowing from arid regions. Chemical analysis revealed iron-rich particles. These discoveries slowly demystified blood rain, transforming it into a subject of meteorology. In the year 1803 of the Common Era, a famous case occurred in southern Italy. Red rain fell over a wide area, alarming the population. Scientists quickly intervened, collecting rainwater and residue for study. They concluded that the color came from Saharan dust carried across the Mediterranean. This event became a landmark case in atmospheric science. Yet even with proof, emotional reactions persisted. Newspapers described the panic among villagers before scientists arrived. The language of fear still echoed older centuries. In the Middle East during the 19th century, European travelers recorded red rain events in Egypt and the Levant. They compared these observations with ancient texts, noting how similar the descriptions were across time. What had changed was interpretation, not appearance. The sky still turned red, but the story told about it had evolved. In the 20th century, blood rain was firmly placed within scientific frameworks. Meteorologists used satellite data to track dust movement across continents. They confirmed that red rain in Europe and the Middle East often originated in the Sahara or Arabian deserts. In rare cases, biological factors such as algae contributed to the color. These findings completed a journey that had taken thousands of years. Yet history remained essential. Without ancient chronicles, modern science would not know how long blood rain had been observed. Texts written by Roman historians, medieval monks, and Islamic scholars became data points across centuries. Fear itself became part of the evidence. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, red rain events still occurred. They were reported calmly, analyzed quickly, and explained through science. But echoes of the past remained in headlines and public reaction. The phrase blood rain still carried weight, even when no blood was involved. This persistence reveals something deep about human perception. Color, especially red, speaks to survival, danger, and memory. Across Europe and the Middle East, generations responded in similar ways despite cultural differences. They looked up, felt unease, and searched for meaning. What unites these histories is not superstition, but attention. People watched the sky closely because their lives depended on weather. Blood rain disrupted expectation, breaking the pattern of ordinary rain. It demanded explanation, whether through religion or science. As you listen now, centuries removed from fear, you can feel the calm distance of understanding. What once terrified empires now rests quietly in textbooks and research papers. Yet the red rain still falls from time to time, unchanged in appearance. Only the human response has softened. As we reach the final stretch of this long and quiet journey, the story of blood rain becomes less about the sky itself and more about the people who stood beneath it, watching, wondering, and trying to understand their place in a vast and often frightening world. Across Europe and the Middle East, the same red rain fell on different languages, religions, and empires, yet the human response was strikingly similar. A pause, a sense of unease, and a search for meaning beyond the visible. In medieval villages, elders remembered earlier generations who had seen the same sky. These memories formed an invisible chain connecting centuries together. When blood rain fell, it was never just a moment. It was history returning. In Europe, scholars of the 19th century began comparing medieval chronicles with modern observations. They noticed that descriptions separated by hundreds of years were almost identical in color, texture, and duration. This continuity suggested that while human interpretation changed, the phenomenon itself remained constant. In the Middle East, historians revisiting classical Islamic texts reached similar conclusions. Descriptions of red rain and dust matched modern meteorological explanations with remarkable accuracy. What once seemed mystical now appeared as early observation without scientific language. Blood rain thus became a bridge between ancient curiosity and modern science. It showed that people had always been attentive observers of nature, even when they explained it differently. In rural Europe, stories of blood rain survived well into the 20th century. Grandparents told children about years when the rain turned red and the village prayed together. These stories were no longer warnings, but memories. In parts of the Middle East, red rain was still sometimes mentioned in sermons or folklore. Not as prophecy, but as a reminder of the power of creation. By the late 20th century, satellites could track dust clouds crossing continents. Scientists could predict when red rain might fall days in advance. The mystery was solved, but the wonder remained. Understanding did not remove beauty or strangeness. It simply replaced fear with quiet respect. Blood rain teaches us that nature does not change for our beliefs. It moves according to laws that remain steady across time. What changes is the human mind, learning slowly, generation by generation, from Roman historians like Pliny the Elder, to Christian chroniclers like Gregory of Tours, to Islamic scholars such as Al-Tabari. The same sky was described in different words. Each added a layer to the story. Together, they created a record stretching across 2,000 years. This long memory allows us to see history not as isolated moments, but as a continuous human experience. People long ago were not foolish or blind. They were responding with the tools they had. Fear, prayer, reflection, and later investigation were all steps on the same path. Blood rain reminds us that science itself grew out of wonder and fear. Without those early questions, there would have been no answers. As you listen now, in a quiet room far removed from medieval panic, you can feel how knowledge calms the mind. The red rain no longer threatens. It becomes part of the rhythm of the earth. Dust rises, wind carries it, rain falls, and history remembers. This story, told slowly across centuries, invites patience. It teaches that understanding often takes longer than a lifetime. Each generation contributes a small piece. Together, they form clarity. As the rain fades and the sky clears, the land returns to stillness. Fields dry, walls lose their stains, and life continues. Only the story remains, passed quietly from one voice to another. And now, as this long night story comes to rest, we ask you, what do you think about the way humans once feared the sky and later learned to understand it? Do you see fear, or do you see curiosity slowly finding its way? If you found calm in this journey through history, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because your support helps us bring more quiet stories from the past. Thank you for listening to Sleeping Radio. May your night be peaceful, and your thoughts as gentle as rain.